The slap was so loud that the music stopped. Glasses froze mid-air. And in a room full of powerful people, a young CEO smiled, because he believed no one would dare stop him. For one full second, nobody breathed. The DJ's hands hovered over the controls like he was afraid to touch anything. A waiter stopped walking mid-step. Even the flashing camera lights slowed, like the room itself was trying to understand what just happened. Adana stood where the slap landed. She did not fall. She did not scream. She just stood there, holding the tray tight with both hands, like it was the only thing keeping her from breaking apart. Matthew Adeyemi, the man who slapped her, looked around the hall and smiled again. Not a sorry smile, not an embarrassed one. It was the kind of smile that said, I own this place. I own this moment. I own you. This was not a small party. This was a Lagos gala filled with rich people, politicians, celebrities, and top business owners. The kind of place where people spoke softly but their watches cost more than some houses. The air smelled like expensive perfume and cold champagne. The chandeliers were bright enough to make everyone's skin shine. And Matthew, at 30, loved everything about it. He stood in a fitted black suit, clean haircut, smooth skin, and a face that always looked like he was winning. People called him a young genius. They called him the future. They said his company was changing Nigeria. They said he was unstoppable. Matthew believed every word. Adana was 25 and extremely beautiful. The kind of beauty that made people stare even when they tried not to. Her caramel skin glowed under the lights. Her eyes were calm but deep. Her lips were soft and full. She wore a simple black uniform dress, neat and modest, like someone told her beauty had to be hidden. She worked in Matthew's house. She cleaned, cooked, and served. In public, she was just the maid. In Matthew's mouth, she was worse than that. Right now, she was standing in front of all his guests with a red mark on her cheek. A woman in a glittering gold gown whispered to the man beside her, "Did he just slap her?" The man shrugged like it was not his problem. "It's his staff. Maybe she did something." Another guest, a young influencer with heavy makeup, leaned forward with wide eyes. She lifted her phone a little, not fully recording, but ready, like she was waiting for something exciting to happen. Matthew took one step closer to Adana. His voice was loud enough for the closest tables to hear. "Are you confused?" he asked. "Are you standing there like you don't understand English?" Adana swallowed. Her hands trembled slightly on the tray, but she kept her head up. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. Matthew laughed. "Sorry? That is what you people always say. Sorry, sorry, sorry." He pointed at the glass on the tray. "Look at this. Look at the way you are holding it. If you spill even one drop on any of my guests, do you know how much that will cost?" Adana's voice was almost a whisper. "It won't spill, sir." Matthew's eyes narrowed. "Don't talk back to me." She blinked fast, trying to keep her tears inside. "I'm not talking back, sir. I'm just—" He cut her off with a sharp tone. "Just what?" Adana's mouth opened, then closed. She could feel people staring. Some faces showed pity. Some showed interest. Some looked like they were enjoying it. That was what made it worse. The slap hurt, but the eyes hurt more. Matthew turned to the nearest table and spread his hands like he was presenting a joke. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "please forgive my maid. Sometimes I forget she is not used to places like this." She sees crystal glasses and she starts shaking. A few people chuckled. Not loud, but enough. Adana's chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to run. But she stood there because she knew what happened if she embarrassed him further. He would punish her later. He always did. Matthew looked back at her and lowered his voice, but the edge in it was sharp. "Do you know why you are here?" he asked. Adana nodded slowly. "To serve, sir." "To serve," Matthew repeated. "Yes, that's all you can do. You are lucky I even brought you out of my house. You should be grateful I allow you to stand near people like this." Adana's throat felt dry. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Matthew leaned in slightly, his smile fading into something colder. "You think your face will save you, right?" You think because you are beautiful, you can make mistakes. Adana's eyes widened, shocked by the cruelty in his words. He kept going. Let me tell you something. Beauty without money is nothing. It is just decoration. It is just something people look at and walk away from. Adana's fingers tightened around the tray so hard her knuckles turned pale. At the back of the room, a middle-aged woman in a purple ghillie shook her head slowly. She looked like she wanted to speak, but the man beside her held her arm gently, warning her with his eyes. The message was clear. Don't get involved. Matthew noticed the silence. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed how nobody challenged him. He lifted his chin and said, "See, all of you. You're all acting shocked. Don't be. This is discipline. Some people only learn when you correct them." Adana finally found her voice. Came out small. "Sir, please." Matthew snapped his head toward her. "Please what?" She struggled to keep herself steady. "Please don't do this here." That sentence was simple, but it was the most dangerous thing she could have said. Matthew's face changed. His eyes flashed with anger, like she had insulted him. "So you're telling me what to do now?" he asked. "No, sir," Adana said quickly. "I'm not." Matthew raised his hand like he might slap her again. The room tensed. Adana froze. Her eyes locked on his hand. Her body went stiff. For a second, she looked like someone waiting for another hit. Matthew paused, not because he felt guilt, but because he liked the fear. He liked the power. He lowered his hand slowly and smiled again. Softer this time, almost friendly. That was the scariest part, because that smile meant he was enjoying this. "Don't worry," he said. "I won't slap you again. Not yet." A few guests gasped quietly. Someone at a table laughed nervously, like they didn't know what else to do. Adana's eyes stung. She blinked again and again, forcing herself not to cry. She would not give him that joy. Not in front of them. Matthew stepped away from her and waved his hand like he was done. "Go," he said. "Go and do the one job you can do, and try not to disgrace me again. You should remember where you came from." Adana nodded. Her lips pressed together as she turned carefully, keeping the tray steady. She walked past the tables, past the stairs, past the whispers, moving like her legs were made of heavy stone. As she walked away, she heard two women murmuring behind their glasses. "That girl is too fine," one whispered. "Imagine being treated like that." The other replied, "This Matthew, he has no fear." Adana kept walking. Every step felt like shame was dragging her down. But inside that shame, something else was forming. Something hot and silent. At the far corner near the service door, she stopped for a second. She breathed in slowly, then out. Her cheek still burned. Her heart still beat fast. Her eyes were still dry, but only barely. Behind her, the music finally started again. People returned to talking. Drinks were lifted. Laughter resumed like nothing happened. And that was when Adana understood the worst truth of all. In that room full of powerful people, nobody would save her. She walked through the service door, away from the bright hall, away from the cameras, away from Matthew's smile. Matthew, meanwhile, returned to his guests like a king returning to his throne. He accepted handshakes, smiled for pictures, and joked loudly. He felt untouchable. But as Adana disappeared into the hallway, her face calm but her mind loud, one thing settled deep inside her. She would never forget this night. Matthew laughed so hard that drink spilled from his glass. "That's the problem with poor people," he said. "They don't know their place until you remind them." The lounge was dim, expensive, and loud. Soft yellow lights reflected off glass tables and polished floors. Music thumped in the background, slow and heavy, the kind meant for people who felt rich enough not to rush anywhere. Matthew sat in the middle of a curved leather sofa, legs stretched out, jacket off, shirt slightly open. He looked relaxed. He looked pleased with himself. Victor sat to his left, swirling his drink lazily. Emeka sat on the other side, leaning back, phone in hand, scrolling through pictures from the gala. "You really slapped her," Victor said, shaking his head with a grin. In front of everybody. Matthew raised his glass. And, Emeka chuckled. Guy, the way the room went quiet. Even I felt it. Matthew smiled wider. That silence? That's respect. People only act shocked because they don't have the guts to do what I do. Victor took a sip. Still, she's your maid. You didn't have to embarrass her like that. Matthew turned to him slowly. Didn't have to? He scoffed. Victor, listen to yourself. That girl works for me. Everything she eats, everything she wears, comes from my pocket. Emeka finally looked up from his phone. She's fine though, he said casually. Very fine. Matthew's eyes hardened. So nothing, Emeka replied quickly. I'm just saying. People were looking. That's exactly why I did it, Matthew said. Let them look. Let them see what happens when someone forgets who is in charge. Victor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You enjoy it too much. Matthew laughed again, louder this time. Why wouldn't I enjoy it? I worked for this life. I didn't grow up begging. I built my company from nothing. That's not true, Emeka said. Your father. Matthew cut him off sharply. My father gave me nothing that I didn't turn into gold. Don't mix things up. There was a short pause. The music filled the space between them. A waitress walked past, placing fresh drinks on the table. None of them noticed how quietly she moved away. Matthew picked up his new glass and leaned back again. Anyway, forget her. That's not even why I brought you guys here. Victor raised an eyebrow. So why? Matthew lowered his voice slightly, not because he was afraid, but because he liked how it sounded when people leaned in to listen. I have an idea, he said. Emeka smiled. You always do. A fundraiser, Matthew continued. Big one. Clean. Public. Investors, partners, media. The whole package. Victor nodded slowly. That makes sense. Good image. Shows responsibility. Matthew smirked. That's what they'll think. Emeka frowned. What do you mean? Matthew leaned forward now, resting his elbows on his knees, his voice calm and confident. The money won't go where it's supposed to go. Victor stiffened. Matthew, relax, Matthew said quickly. I've thought it through. Shell accounts, private channels. It's clean. Nobody will trace anything. Emeka's eyes widened. You want to divert investor funds? Matthew shrugged. Temporarily, or permanently, depends on how much comes in. Victor shook his head. That's risky. Matthew waved him off. Everything big is risky. That's how money is made. Emeka leaned closer. How much are we talking? Matthew smiled. Enough to set me up for life. Enough to remind certain people that I'm not just rich. I'm untouchable. Victor sighed. And the board? Matthew laughed softly. The board sees what I want them to see. Chief Daniel is old. The rest follow him. Nobody is checking deeply. There was a moment of silence as Victor and Emeka exchanged looks. Then Emeka broke into a grin. This fundraiser when? Soon, Matthew said. Very soon. Victor hesitated. And what about your staff? After what happened at the gala. People might talk. Matthew's smile returned, slow and cruel. That reminds me. He straightened up. I'm inviting Adana. Emeka blinked. Your maid? Yes, Matthew said. Her. Victor frowned. Why? Matthew's eyes lit up like he had just remembered something funny. Because it will be entertaining. Entertaining how? Victor asked. Matthew chuckled. I'll let her come. Let her wear her cheap dress. Let her stand among people who don't belong to her world. Emeka laughed. You're mad. I'm serious, Matthew said. Imagine it. Investors everywhere. Cameras flashing. And then her. Standing there. Confused. Victor shook his head slowly. That's cruel. Matthew leaned back again, clearly enjoying their reactions. Cruel? Or honest? She should see the gap. She should feel it. Emeka raised his glass. To humiliation. Matthew clinked his glass against his. To lessons. Victor did not raise his drink. You don't have to be part of it, Matthew told him. Just watch. At the edge of the lounge, near a dark hallway leading to the restrooms, Adana stood frozen. She had been sent earlier to collect Matthew's jacket. She found the lounge by asking a staff member. When she reached the corner, she stopped. She heard her name. She did not step forward. She stayed hidden behind a tall plant, her heart beating fast. Every word Matthew said landed hard. The fundraiser, the money, the plan, her humiliation. Her hands shook slightly at her sides. Her cheek still hurt from the slap. But now something else hurt more. She wasn't just a joke to him. She was part of his game. Matthew's laughter echoed again. This time, he said, I'll make sure everyone remembers who she is. Adana closed her eyes for a brief second. Then she opened them. She turned quietly and walked away, her steps slow but steady. By the time Matthew finished his drink, still smiling, he had no idea that someone he thought was powerless had just heard everything, and that his own pride had given her exactly what she needed. Adana did not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Matthew's voice again, clear and proud, talking about money that did not belong to him and a fundraiser meant to fool everyone. By morning, she knew one thing for sure. What she heard at the lounge was not just talk. It was a plan. The house was quiet when she woke up. Matthew had not returned home until very late, and when he did, he went straight to his room. Adana moved softly through the kitchen, preparing breakfast like always, but her mind was far away. Her cheek no longer burned, but the memory of the slap still sat heavy in her chest. She placed the tray on the counter and whispered to herself, "He thinks nobody is listening." Later that day, while Matthew was away at work, Adana stood alone in the living room, staring at the large glass shelves filled with files and documents. She had dusted that area many times. She knew where things were kept. She knew which drawer Matthew always locked and which one he never bothered with. Her heart beat fast as she reached for the first file. "Just look," she told herself. "Just look." She opened it carefully. Numbers filled the pages. Company names she had seen before. Dates. Amounts that made her breath catch. She did not understand everything, but she understood enough to know something was wrong. She flipped through more pages, her fingers moving faster now. "This is too much money," she whispered. Her phone buzzed suddenly. She jumped, almost dropping the file. She froze, listening. The house stayed silent. No footsteps. No voices. She exhaled slowly and continued. Over the next few days, Adana became careful in a way she had never been before. She watched. She listened. She waited. When Matthew took calls in the living room, she stayed nearby, pretending to clean. "Yes, move it there," he said once, pacing. "No, not that account. Use the other one. The clean one." Another time, she heard him say, "After the fundraiser, nobody will ask questions. They never do." Each time, Adana's hands shook, but she stayed calm on the outside. She memorized words. She noted times. She recorded small voice notes on her phone when she could, hiding it under a cushion or inside her apron pocket. One evening, she overheard Matthew arguing with Emeka on speakerphone. "You're being paranoid," Matthew snapped. "Everything is set." Emeka's voice came through clearly. "I'm just saying be careful." Matthew laughed. "Careful is for people without power." Adana felt a chill run through her. At night, when the house was quiet again, she sat on her bed and looked at what she had gathered. Pictures of documents, short audio recordings, notes written in her own careful handwriting. Her room was small, just a bed, a chair, and a narrow window. But in that room, something big was happening. She pressed her palms together, breathing slowly. "This can ruin him," she said softly. Then fear followed quickly after. "This can ruin me too." She thought about the slap, about the laughter, about how nobody stepped in. She remembered Matthew's smile when he said, "Not yet." Her hands tightened into fists. "If I stay quiet," she whispered, "he will keep doing this." The next day, she almost stopped herself. Matthew came home early, looking tense. He tossed his keys on the table and loosened his tie. "Where is my laptop charger?" he demanded. Adana swallowed and replied calmly, "It's in your study, sir." He looked at her sharply, like he was searching her face for something. For a second, she thought he knew. Then he looked away. "Bring it." She did. Her heart pounded the whole time. That night, she cried silently into her pillow, not because she felt weak, but because she was tired of being afraid. By the fourth day, Adana knew she had enough. She spread everything out on her bed. Every picture, every recording, every note. She checked dates again and again, making sure they matched. She replayed Matthew's voice through her earphones, her jaw tight as she listened. "This is real," she said to herself. "This is not in my head." She stood up and paced the room. But who will believe me? That question scared her more than Matthew ever had. She was a maid. No title, no money, no connections. If she went to the police, they might laugh at her. Or worse, they might tell Matthew. She sat down slowly, her shoulders slumping. Then she remembered a name Matthew mentioned often with slight annoyance. Chief Daniel Okeke, a senior board member, older, quiet, respected, the kind of man Matthew spoke about carefully, never joking with his name. Adana closed her eyes and thought, "If anyone will listen," she whispered, "it will be him." The decision did not come easily. She stayed awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking of every possible outcome. Losing her job, being thrown out, being accused of stealing, being silenced. But then she thought of the fundraiser, of investors losing their money, of Matthew standing proudly, hurting people and walking away clean. She sat up suddenly. "No," she said out loud. "I won't let him." The next morning, she packed the evidence carefully into a small bag. She wrapped her phone charger around it, hiding it beneath clothes. Her movements were slow and steady, like someone afraid to rush and make a mistake. As she stepped out of her room, she paused and looked around the house one last time. "This place does not own me," she said quietly. Later that day, while Matthew was away, Adana walked out through the front gate for the first time, not as a maid running an errand, but as a woman with a purpose. Her hands shook as she hailed a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. She took a deep breath. "Williams Tower," she said. "I need to see Chief Daniel Okeke." As the car pulled into traffic, Adana leaned back and closed her eyes, holding her bag tightly. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew she was done being silent. Chief Daniel Okeke did not like surprises, and a young maid asking to see him without an appointment felt like one. The receptionist leaned into his office and spoke softly. "Sir, there is a young woman outside. She says her name is Adana. She says it is urgent." Chief Daniel adjusted his glasses and frowned slightly. "Does she have an appointment?" "No, sir." He sighed. "Then why is she here?" She said, "She has information about Matthew Adeyemi." That name made him pause. Chief Daniel leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping slowly on the armrest. Matthew was loud, arrogant, but smart. At least that was what people believed. Still, hearing his name attached to urgent information made Chief Daniel curious. "Send her in," he said finally. Adana walked into the office slowly, her bag held tight against her chest. The room was large but simple. Dark wood furniture, neat shelves, a wide window overlooking the city. Nothing flashy. It felt like the office of a man who did not need to prove anything. Chief Daniel studied her quietly. She looked nervous but composed. Young, beautiful, and clearly out of place in such an office. "Sit," he said, pointing to the chair opposite him. She sat. "What do you want?" he asked calmly. Adana took a breath. "Sir, my name is Adana. I work in Matthew Adeyemi's house." Chief Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You are his maid?" "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly. "Then why are you here?" Her fingers tightened around her bag. "Because Matthew is planning something illegal, and people will get hurt." Chief Daniel did not react immediately. He just looked at her, quiet and unreadable. "That is a serious accusation," he said at last. "Do you understand what you are saying?" "Yes, sir," Adana replied. "That is why I came." He leaned forward slightly. And what makes you think I should listen to you? She hesitated, then answered honestly. Because I heard him say it himself. Chief Daniel's lips pressed together. People hear many things. Hearing is not proof. I know, Adana said quickly. That is why I brought proof. She opened her bag with shaking hands and brought out her phone and a small stack of papers. She placed them carefully on the table like fragile items. These are pictures of documents from his house, she said. These are recordings. And these are notes of dates and amounts. Chief Daniel glanced at them but did not touch them yet. You could have stolen these, he said. Or faked them. Adana met his eyes. Sir, I gain nothing from lying. I only gain trouble. He studied her face again. He saw fear there, but also something else. Determination. Why are you doing this? He asked. She swallowed. Because he plans to host a fundraiser and steal the money. And because he believes nobody will stop him. Chief Daniel leaned back again. Matthew hosts fundraisers often. This one is different, Adana said. I heard him say it. He said the money will go into private accounts. He laughed about it. She reached for her phone. Please, sir, just listen. She played one of the recordings. Matthew's voice filled the room, confident and careless. After the fundraiser, nobody will ask questions. They never do. Chief Daniel's face changed slightly. Adana played another. Use the other account. The clean one. Silence followed. Chief Daniel picked up the phone now and replayed the clip himself. Then he picked up the papers and looked through them slowly. Numbers, names, patterns. Minutes passed without a word. Adana's heart pounded. She felt small sitting there, waiting for his judgment. Finally, Chief Daniel spoke. Do you know what this means? Yes, sir, she said quietly. It means he is committing fraud. And it also means, he continued, that you are putting yourself in danger. I know, Adana replied, but I am already in danger. He looked at her sharply. What do you mean? She hesitated, then spoke. He humiliates me. He slapped me publicly at a gala. He enjoys showing his power. Chief Daniel's jaw tightened. He did what? She nodded. In front of guests. For a moment, the room felt heavy. Chief Daniel stood up and walked to the window, his hands behind his back. He stared out at the city, quiet and thoughtful. I warned the board about his pride, he said slowly. They said he was young. He turned back to her. Do you know why Matthew is dangerous? Because he thinks he is untouchable, Adana said. Chief Daniel nodded. Exactly. He walked back to his desk and Saturday. If we confront him now, he will deny everything. He will clean up his tracks. Adana leaned forward. Then don't confront him. He looked at her. What do you suggest? She hesitated, surprised he was asking her. Let him continue. Chief Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. Go on. Let him host the fundraiser, Adana said carefully. Let him believe everything is working. Chief Daniel was silent again. And then? He asked. And then, she said, her voice steady now. We expose him when he cannot escape. A slow smile appeared on Chief Daniel's face. Not a happy one. A knowing one. You are smarter than you look, he said. She shook her head. I just listened. He nodded. That may be enough. Chief Daniel gathered the documents and placed them in a folder. You will leave these with me. Yes, sir. And from now on, he added, you will not act alone. Adana felt a small weight lift from her chest. You believe me? I do, he said. And Matthew will not see this coming. She exhaled deeply for the first time since entering the office. Chief Daniel stood and extended his hand. We will follow through with his plan, he said. But with changes. Adana stood and shook his hand, her grip firm despite the fear still inside her. As she walked out of the office, one thought echoed clearly in her mind. Matthew had underestimated many things, but most of all, he had underestimated the man who just decided to stand beside her. The first thing Adana noticed was how calm everything suddenly became. Not outside, not in the world, but around her. 2 days after leaving Chief Daniel's office, She sat in the back seat of a quiet car, watching Lagos move past the window, and for the first time in a long while, fear was no longer the loudest thing in her head. Chief Daniel sat beside her, reading through a thin file. "From now on," he said calmly, "you do nothing without telling me first." Adana nodded. "Yes, sir. This is not because I doubt you," he added. "It is because Matthew is careless, but he is not stupid." "I understand," she said. The car stopped in front of a modest building with no signboard. Adana frowned slightly. "Where are we?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Chief Daniel replied as he stepped out. Inside, the place felt quiet and controlled. No noise, no rush. A woman in a simple suit greeted Chief Daniel with a respectful nod. "Sir," she said, "we're ready." She looked at Adana next, studying her face closely. "This is her." "Yes," Chief Daniel said. "This is Adana." The woman smiled slightly. "You don't look like someone who is about to turn a room upside down." Adana gave a small, unsure smile. "I don't feel like one either." They sat around a table. Papers were spread out neatly. A man joined them, older with sharp eyes. "This is our legal advisor," Chief Daniel said. "And this is one of the investigators." Adana's heart beat faster. Chief Daniel folded his hands. "Let's be clear. We are not stopping the fundraiser." Adana looked up. "You're letting it happen?" "Yes," he said. "Matthew must feel safe. If he feels threatened, he will destroy evidence." The investigator nodded. "We've seen this type before. Pride makes them careless." The lawyer turned to Adana. "What we need from you is simple. You keep acting normal. You go to work. You don't change your behavior." Adana swallowed. "And the gala?" Chief Daniel looked at her carefully. "That is where things change." He slid a small card across the table toward her. Adana picked it up. It had a designer's name and an address. "You will not attend that fundraiser as a maid," Chief Daniel said. "You will attend as a guest." Her eyes widened slightly. "Sir, you will arrive confident," he continued. "Well-dressed, calm, not hiding, not apologizing." Adana's voice was barely above a whisper. "Matthew invited me to mock me." "That is his mistake," Chief Daniel said. "He thinks humiliation is the weapon. He does not understand presence." The woman in the suit leaned forward. "We will handle your look, dress, hair, jewelry. Nothing excessive. Just enough to make people stop and look." Adana looked down at her hands. They were shaking. "I've never worn anything like that," she admitted. "You will," the woman said gently. "And you will own it." The investigator cleared his throat. "There is one more thing." Chief Daniel nodded. "The EFCC." Adana stiffened. "They're involved." "They will be," Chief Daniel said. "Quietly. They will be nearby. They will not move until the evidence is revealed." "And Matthew?" Adana asked. "He will walk into his own trap," Chief Daniel replied. Silence settled over the table. Adana took a deep breath. "What if he suspects something?" Chief Daniel met her eyes. "Then we end it early. But he won't. He enjoys control too much." Later that evening, Adana returned to Matthew's house. Everything felt the same. The walls, the furniture, the air. Matthew sat in the living room, talking loudly on his phone. "Yes, everything is on track," he said. "I want this fundraiser perfect." He noticed Adana standing there. "Why are you just standing?" "I came to ask if you need anything, sir," she said calmly. He waved her off. "Just make dinner." As she walked to the kitchen, she felt something strange. She was not afraid of him anymore. Over the next few days, things moved quickly but quietly. Adana went to fittings under another name. She sat still as people measured her, styled her hair, tested jewelry against her skin. Each time she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "Stand straight," the stylist said one afternoon. Adana lifted her chin. "Yes," the stylist murmured. "Like that. You're not hiding anymore." At night, Adana returned to her small room in Matthew's house and sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She thought about the gala, the slap, the laughter, the silence. "This time," she whispered, "they will listen." Matthew, meanwhile, grew more excited each day. He talked endlessly about the fundraiser. "This will be my biggest event yet," he told Victor over the phone. "Everything is perfect." He passed Adana one morning and smirked. "Make sure you're free that night." She lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." He leaned closer. "Don't disappoint me again." Adana nodded and walked away. Inside her room that night, her phone buzzed. A message from Chief Daniel. "Everything is ready." She sat back slowly, her heart beating steady, not fast. The plan was set. The trap was built. And Matthew was already walking toward it, smiling. Matthew checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. "She should be here by now," he muttered. The fundraiser hall glowed with soft white lights and gold details. Everything was polished. Everything was perfect. The kind of place that made people feel important the moment they walked in. Investors moved from table to table with glasses in hand. Board members smiled and shook hands. Cameras flashed quietly near the stage. Matthew stood near the front, greeting guests like a king welcoming his court. "Matthew," one investor said, laughing, "you outdid yourself." Matthew smiled proudly. "Only the best. Tonight is about growth." Inside, he felt excited, confident. He knew the money would flow. He knew nobody suspected a thing. But his eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. Victor leaned close and spoke under his breath. "You're looking for someone?" Matthew smirked. "Just waiting for the entertainment." Emeka chuckled. "You're still on that?" Matthew nodded. "I told her to come. I want everyone to see what happens when you step into a world that isn't yours." Victor shook his head slightly. "You really don't let things go." Matthew laughed. "Why should I? Power is enjoyed, not wasted." Across the hall, Chief Daniel sat quietly at a round table, watching everything without drawing attention. He sipped his drink slowly, his eyes calm. The doors remained closed. Matthew tapped his fingers against his glass. His mood began to shift. "Did she chicken out?" Emeka asked. Matthew scoffed. "She wouldn't dare." Just then, the music softened. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. A hush fell, not because anyone planned it, but because something about the moment demanded attention. Adana stepped inside. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She walked in like she belonged there. Her dress was simple but elegant, fitted perfectly, deep emerald against her glowing skin. Her hair fell softly over her shoulders. Jewelry caught the light without shouting for attention. Her face was calm, her posture straight. For a second, no one spoke. Then whispers started. "Who is that? She's stunning. I've never seen her before." Matthew's smile vanished. He stared, his mouth slightly open, his brain refusing to accept what his eyes were seeing. That's not," he said quietly. Victor squinted. "Wait, is that?" Emeka's eyes widened. "That's your maid." Matthew's chest tightened. "No, but it was." Adana continued walking, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Every step felt steady, controlled. Her eyes scanned the room briefly, then settled forward. She saw Matthew. Their eyes met. For the first time since he knew her, Matthew felt uncomfortable. "What is she wearing?" he whispered. Victor didn't answer. He was too busy staring. Adana passed tables where guests turned fully in their seats to watch her. Some smiled openly. Others whispered behind their hands. A few straightened up, suddenly interested. A woman leaned toward her husband. "She walks like she owns the place." Matthew clenched his jaw. "She's enjoying this," Emeka said softly. "No," Matthew snapped. "She's trying to embarrass me." He stepped forward quickly, blocking her path just before she reached the center of the hall. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked in a low voice. Adana stopped and looked at him calmly. Not afraid, not apologetic. "You invited me," she said simply. Matthew glanced around. Too many eyes, too many ears. "I invited you as staff," he hissed. "Not like this." Adana tilted her head slightly. You said I should come. You did not say how. Matthew's face flushed. You're making a scene. She met his gaze steadily. I'm just standing. Around them, the whispers grew louder. Is there a problem? Someone asked softly. Chief Daniel watched closely, his face unreadable. Matthew forced a laugh and turned to the crowd. Everyone, please excuse us. Small misunderstanding. Adana spoke before he could move her aside. There is no misunderstanding, she said, her voice clear but calm. The room quieted again. Matthew's eyes burned. Adana, he warned. She did not flinch. You invited me here, sir. I came. The word sir landed differently this time. It did not sound weak. It sounded deliberate. Matthew lowered his voice. You should leave. Now. Adana took a slow breath. No. That single word shocked him more than the slap ever had. You don't tell me no, he said sharply. She looked around the room, then back at him. Tonight, I do. A few guests exchanged looks. Cameras lifted slightly. Matthew felt the room slipping. Security, he said under his breath. Before anyone moved, Chief Daniel stood up from his table. Matthew, he said calmly. Let her speak. Matthew froze. Chief Daniel, he said quickly, forcing a smile. This is just a personal issue. Chief Daniel's eyes stayed on Adana. I don't think it is. The hall went completely silent. Adana stood taller now, her hands relaxed at her sides. Matthew felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Fear. But the crowd saw something else. Confidence. Respect. And as Adana took one step forward toward the microphone, the entire room leaned in, unaware that everything was about to change. Adana's fingers touched the microphone, and the whole room held its breath like one person. Matthew moved fast, stepping toward her. Don't, he warned under his breath. His smile was still on his face, but his eyes were sharp. You will regret this. Adana did not look away. I've regretted being silent for too long, she said quietly. Chief Daniel stood a few steps behind, calm like a wall. He did not touch Adana. He did not protect her with his body. He protected her with his presence. The crowd noticed that. They noticed that a man like Chief Daniel was not stopping her. That alone made them listen. Adana turned to face the guests. The lights hit her face and made her look even more striking. She did not smile. She did not frown. She looked serious, like someone who had decided to stop begging for respect. Good evening, she said into the microphone. A few people responded softly, confused. Matthew laughed nervously. Adana, this is not the time. She raised one hand slightly, not dramatic, just enough to stop him. Please, she said calmly. Let me speak. Matthew's jaw clenched. You are embarrassing me. Adana's eyes stayed on the crowd. That's interesting, she said, because embarrassing me has never stopped you before. A ripple moved through the hall. Not laughter, not applause, just a quiet shock. Adana continued. My name is Adana. Many of you don't know me because you don't look at people like me. You only see people like Matthew. Matthew's smile dropped. Watch your mouth, he snapped. Adana finally turned her eyes to him. I have watched my mouth for months, she said. But you have not watched your hands. The room froze again. One woman at the front covered her mouth. A man beside her leaned forward, eyes wide. Matthew forced a laugh. This is nonsense. Chief Daniel, please, control her. Chief Daniel did not move. He only said one sentence, calm and loud enough for the room to hear. Let her finish. Matthew's head whipped toward him. Sir. Chief Daniel's tone remained steady. Let her finish, Matthew. Adana turned back to the crowd. Some days ago, at a gala like this, Matthew slapped me in front of guests. Not because I stole anything. Not because I insulted him. But because he wanted to show power. Matthew stepped forward. That is a lie. Adana's voice did not rise. Is it? She asked. Or do you want to pretend it didn't happen because you are wearing a suit and smiling now? More whispers. More phones lifted. Victor and Emeka stood behind Matthew, suddenly quiet. Their earlier confidence was gone. They looked like men realizing the room could turn on them too. Adana continued. When he slapped me, some of you looked away. Some of you laughed. Some of you did nothing. I understand. People don't like trouble. She paused, letting that sink in. But what Matthew is doing now is bigger than my face. It is your money. That sentence changed everything. The investors who were relaxed a moment ago became alert. Faces tightened. Postures changed. A few people lowered their glasses. Matthew's voice rose. Adana, shut up. Adana did not flinch. Matthew planned this fundraiser as a trick, she said clearly. He is not raising money for the company. He is raising money for himself. A board member stood up slowly. What are you talking about? Adana nodded toward him. Sir, I'm saying the money you donate tonight is meant to be diverted into private accounts. Matthew laughed hard, like he was trying to drown her with noise. This is madness. She's a maid. She doesn't even understand finance. Chief Daniel finally spoke again, calm and controlled. Matthew, you are making it worse. Matthew turned to him, eyes burning. You're siding with her? Over me. Chief Daniel's voice stayed cold. I am siding with truth. Adana reached into her small clutch bag and brought out her phone. She held it up for the crowd to see. I didn't come here with stories, she said. I came here with evidence. Matthew's body went stiff. Adana tapped her screen and connected to the sound system Chief Daniel had already arranged quietly. A moment later, Matthew's own voice filled the hall. After the fundraiser, nobody will ask questions. They never do. People gasped. Matthew's face drained. Turn that off, he shouted. Adana tapped again. Use the other account. The clean one. The hall erupted in confused murmurs. An older investor stepped forward, furious. Is that you? Matthew shook his head quickly. It's edited. It's fake. Adana spoke over the noise, still calm. It is not fake. I recorded it when he said it. And I have pictures of documents from his house. Matthew snapped his fingers at security. Remove her. Now. 2 security men began moving forward, but Chief Daniel lifted one hand. They paused immediately, confused by the authority in his gesture. Chief Daniel looked at them. Nobody touches her. The security men stopped. Matthew stared at them, shocked. Do you know who pays you? Chief Daniel answered for them. The company pays them, Matthew. Not you. Matthew's breath came fast. He looked around, realizing the room was no longer his. Adana took one step closer to the microphone again. I know what you are thinking, she said. You are thinking, how did my maid get this? She looked at Matthew. The truth is, you spoke too freely. You bragged. You laughed. You thought nobody was listening. Matthew's voice cracked with anger. You went through my things. I protected myself, Adana replied. Because you don't protect people. You use them. Victor finally spoke, trying to calm things. Everyone, please, let's not overreact. A woman in the crowd snapped. Overreact? This is fraud. Emeka's eyes darted around. He looked like he wanted to disappear. Adana's voice remained steady. Matthew has also been moving company money already, she said. This fundraiser was just the biggest one. The final one. Matthew shouted. You have no proof. Chief Daniel opened a folder and raised it slightly. Yes, she does. Matthew turned sharply. Sir, you? Chief Daniel cut him off. You thought the board was sleeping, Matthew. We were watching. And now everyone is watching. The hall was loud now. People talking at once. Investors calling their assistants. Board members whispering urgently. Phones recording openly. Matthew stepped toward Adana again, his face twisted with rage. You think you've won? He hissed. You think dressing up will save you? You're still nothing. Adana looked at him without blinking. Maybe, she said quietly. But tonight, your money and your name are nothing too. The room fell silent again. Not because Adana demanded it, but because Matthew had finally been cornered. Adana turned back to the crowd, her voice clear and final. I did not come to beg, she said. I came to expose him. And as her words hung in the air, the doors behind the hall shifted slightly, like something was already waiting to enter. The doors at the back of the hall opened wider, and a voice cut through the noise. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Nobody move. For a second, it did not feel real. Like the room was acting in a movie and someone had shouted a line too loudly. Then the men stepped in. Dark jackets, clear badges, serious faces. They moved fast and steady, spreading out in a line like they had done this many times before. The crowd backed away without being told twice. Chairs scraped the floor. Glasses shook in hands. Matthew's eyes went wide. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Victor grabbed Matthew's arm. Matthew, what is this? Emeka looked like he wanted to run, but his legs did not move. The lead officer walked forward, eyes scanning the room like a scanner. Which one is Matthew Adeyemi? He asked. A few heads turned instantly toward Matthew, like the room had been waiting for permission to point at him. Matthew forced a laugh that sounded wrong. Officer, I think you've made a mistake. The officer did not smile. Matthew Adeyemi? Matthew's throat tightened. Yes, but... Sir, the officer interrupted. You are under investigation for fraud and money laundering. The hall exploded into whispers. A woman gasped loudly. Someone else muttered, Jesus. A camera flash went off in Matthew's face like a slap of light. Matthew lifted both hands in the air, smiling like he could charm his way out. This is madness. This is a setup. The officer's voice stayed calm. You will explain yourself at our office. Matthew turned sharply toward Chief Daniel. Sir, tell them this is nonsense. Chief Daniel did not flinch. Matthew, stop talking. Matthew's eyes burned with panic and anger. You're doing this to me? After everything. Chief Daniel's tone was still controlled. You did this to yourself. Matthew spun toward Adana, his face twisting. You! Adana stood still beside the microphone. Her hands relaxed. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. She looked like someone who had already cried all her tears long ago and was now done. Matthew stepped closer, ignoring the officers for a second. You think you're smart? He hissed. You think you've become somebody because you wore a dress and played audio? Adana's voice was quiet. I didn't become somebody tonight, Matthew. I just stopped acting like I was nobody. Matthew scoffed. You were nothing when I found you. Nothing. Adana nodded slowly. Maybe, but you're about to find out what it feels like. The lead officer stepped closer. Sir, face this way. Matthew didn't move. His eyes darted around like he was searching for an exit. Victor leaned in, whispering urgently. Matthew, cooperate. Don't make it worse. Matthew slapped Victor's hand away. Shut up. Emeka's voice came out shaky. Matthew, just calm down. Matthew snapped at him too. You too, shut up. The officer repeated, firmer now. Matthew Adeyemi, face this way. Matthew finally turned, his smile returning again, desperate and fake. Officer, I am a respected businessman. Do you know who you're talking to? The officer replied calmly. Yes, that's why we're here. He pulled out a paper. We have evidence. We have recordings, documents, and transaction trails. You will come with us. Matthew's face dropped. He swallowed hard. Then he did the one thing he always did when he felt cornered. He tried to control the room with anger. This is all her fault, he shouted, pointing at Adana. That girl is a thief. She stole my private documents. She is blackmailing me. Some guests murmured, unsure for a brief moment. Adana lifted the microphone again, her voice clear. He's lying. Matthew barked. Shut up. Adana didn't raise her voice. Look at him, she told the crowd. This is the man you respected. This is the man you praised. A few people nodded slowly, disgust spreading across faces. One investor stepped forward, furious. Matthew, were you going to steal from us? Matthew spun. Sir, please, don't listen to this nonsense. Another investor cut in. Answer him. Matthew's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, he had no smooth answer. Cameras moved closer. People recorded openly now. Phones were held up high. This was no longer a private embarrassment. This was public destruction. The lead officer stepped behind Matthew. "Hands behind your back." Matthew froze. He looked around like he expected someone to rescue him. Like he expected the room to suddenly remember he was important. But the room did not move for him anymore. The officer took Matthew's wrist. Matthew jerked back. "Don't touch me." The officer's voice stayed cold. "Sir, do not resist." Matthew's breathing became fast. "Chief Daniel, this is a mistake. Tell them." Chief Daniel stared at him for a long moment, then spoke slowly. "The mistake was thinking your title made you untouchable." Matthew's lips trembled. "You can't do this to me. I built this company." Chief Daniel replied, "You were only borrowing the company. You forgot it was not your personal wallet." Matthew's eyes watered, not from sadness, but from rage and fear mixing together. The handcuffs clicked. That sound was small, but it was louder than the music had ever been. A woman in the crowd whispered, "He's finished." Another voice replied, "Imagine," in front of everybody. Matthew's shoulders dropped slightly when he realized it was real, that he was not waking up from it. He turned one last time toward Adana as the officers began to move him. "This won't end," he said through clenched teeth. "You hear me? It won't end." Adana stepped closer, not too close, just enough for him to hear her without shouting. "It ends tonight," she said. Matthew laughed bitterly. "You think you've won?" Adana answered calmly. "No, I think you've lost." The officers guided him forward, and the crowd split like water, giving him space to pass. People looked at him like he was a stranger now, like his suit meant nothing, like his name meant nothing. Victor stood frozen, his face pale. Emeka stared at the floor, ashamed to even look up. As Matthew walked past the tables, a camera flash hit his face again. He flinched. He remembered how he enjoyed the attention, how he loved being watched. Now he hated it. The lead officer spoke loudly for everyone to hear. "Matthew Adeyemi, you are coming with us." Matthew tried to straighten his back, to look proud, but his legs betrayed him. His steps were uneven. His face was tight. Outside, through the open doors, the night air waited. So did the EFCC vehicle. So did the reality he could no longer pay to escape. Adana stood at the front of the hall, breathing slowly. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She just stood there, steady. Chief Daniel walked up beside her and spoke quietly. "Are you okay?" Adana nodded once. "I am." Chief Daniel looked at the crowd, then at her. "You were brave." Adana's voice was soft. "I was tired." As Matthew disappeared through the doors, the room slowly began to breathe again. People whispered. People shook their heads. Some looked at Adana with respect, like they were seeing her for the first time. Adana turned away from the microphone and walked toward the exit, not running, not hiding. The same doors Matthew walked through in shame were the doors she walked through with dignity. And outside, under the lights of Lagos, the maid he mocked was no longer the butt of any joke.